Welcome to the Borderless Podcast, your guide to traveling, investing, and living beyond borders, where we talk about living the life that you want to live, where you want to live it. From beautiful San Miguel de Allende, smack in the middle of Mexico, with your hosts, Jonathan Lockwood and James Guzman.
Bienvenido! You found the Borderless Podcast, traveling, investing, and living beyond borders. If you're interested in a different kind of life, one that you are more in control of, if you long to travel the planet or relocate internationally, if you'd like to succeed at your own location-independent business, then we're glad you found us. We're podcasting from the Borderless compound in the intriguing high desert mountain town of San Miguel de Allende, Mexico. And while the Borderless compound does itself have borders, it also has plenty of gates, and we have the keys. My name is Jonathan Lockwood. I'm here with James Guzman. Hey, James.
Hey, Jonathan. How you doing today?
Good. Anything new for us today?
I don't think so. I think everything's, going to plan. I've been building a lot of audience here. A lot of people really interested in the podcast here, so we appreciate that. And welcome. This is the first time listening. I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah. I did notice there was some San Miguel de Allende news. They started some sort of a sister city program with a city in the U.S., I never understand these things. Now and then you'll find out a city say, well, our sister city in Mongolia or some far-flung place. Right. But this time they made it with Vail, Colorado. So the idea is that it's some sort of cultural exchange. I never understand these things.
Yeah. Well, there are a number of people from Colorado here, so
that's true. And it's nice when you pick a city if it's kind of a cool city. So anyway, hopefully that's a positive move for San Miguel. But our guest today is Gonzalo Gomez of Puntaconsultants. Gonzalo is an Uruguayan native who is very knowledgeable about the entire country. Through Puntaconsultants, he helps people from all over the world improve their quality of life by relocating either full or part-time to Uruguay. Gonzalo is a helpful intercultural problem solver and resource. All right. He is highly experienced with the immigration procedures that are involved in Uruguayan residency applications and has obtained more than 300 granted residencies for his clients. He's also highly experienced in providing specialized concierge services and is fluent in both English and Spanish. He understands and is experienced with all the necessities of getting settled in Uruguay. Welcome, Gonzalo Gomez.
Thank you so much, guys. Thanks for having me over.
Well, Gonzalo, you and I spoke a week or so ago, and I told you that every time the subject of where do we go, that is generally speaking for people in the United States, but it is certainly not limited, certainly people in Europe and other places as well. The name Uruguay does come up. It is on the radar for people who are interested in finding residency and that there are certain advantages to it. Have you been hearing this yourself for some time?
That is true. I think Uruguay has been a hotspot for expats, and actually the expat community in Uruguay has been growing very rapidly in the past, I could say, decade.
In the last decade, right. Well, why don't we just start off here and talk about what you think are some of the most positive things about living in Uruguay from an expat perspective?
Well, let me outline some of the advantages of living in Uruguay. We are a very small country. Sometimes that can be an advantage or a disadvantage, but I think it's an advantage in this case. We have a population of 3.5 million people. We have a lot of fertile soil. We have one of the biggest water reservoirs in the world, and we also have direct access to the Atlantic Ocean. Pollution is not an issue here. Uruguay is not involved in any armed conflict. Corruption is very low in Uruguay. Expats and people can access low cost health insurance, with very good quality of medicine. We are also in a very strategic area. We're in between two huge countries such as Argentina and Brazil. But you can also, in 2 hours plane trip, you can be in Santiago de Chile, and you can fly to Miami. We have straight flights to Miami for 9 hours. And one of the most important things is that quality of life in Uruguay is very good. And that's not my saying. It's what most people think of Uruguay, quality of life. Okay. And I guess that there are more advantages, but good.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a great start. You listed a number of things for us there. So why would you say the quality of life is higher in Uruguay than many countries?
If you think about Uruguay and you compare Uruguay with other South American countries, for example, safety, security, we do have issues like anywhere else in the world, but we don't have violence. We don't have radical people doing crazy things. As I mentioned before, Uruguay is not involved in any armed conflict. Mm-hmm. It's the opposite.
Right. And
people in the country, are very peaceful. And good quality of life. People can access organic, good quality food. The water in general is good. It's very rich. Although we're going through a severe drought, it hasn't rained. South Uruguay hasn't rained for about 8 months, and we're going through a big drought. But still, people who have wells, you dig a well in Uruguay, and you have pure water, and it's unstoppable.
Right. Well, that's what you hear a lot. I know when I was living in the U.S., I would always search for grass-fed beef, and it seemed like most of the time the grass-fed beef was coming from Uruguay. So there must be a special place for that. You must have a lot of grass there, I'm guessing.
That is true. We have a lot of green pastures all over the country, and it's amazing. If you look at Uruguay in the map, it looks very small, but when you start driving around, there's a lot of green areas. And, well, now, due to the drought, they're not so green, let's be honest. But in general, it's always rich pastures, and the soil is very fertile. And the quality of the beef in Uruguay is one of the best in the world.
Okay, very good. Well, that's nice. Those are some really nice positives. And why don't we'll ask you a little bit later what some potential negatives could be associated with Uruguay. But right now, why don't you give us an idea of maybe the top 3 or 4 different places where expats tend to live? If you could describe where they are and what they're like.
Well, some of the biggest expat population are located in the capital city of Montevideo. Montevideo has 1.5 million people. It looks very small on a map. It looks like very small geographically talking, a small place. But you have 1.5 million people gather in this city, and it's a capital. It has let's say the only international airport in the country with that is connected to the world. It's that they don't have ocean access. It's more like a river plate. The water is brownish, but it can be very nice. You can fish, and you can enjoy pristine beaches in Montevideo. And there's a lot to do in Montevideo. It's a very cosmopolitan place, and there's lots of things to do.
May I stop you, please, Gonzalo? Did you say there's no ocean access in Montevideo?
There is access to the water, but the water is not blue. It's kind of brownish.
What's that?
Remember that Uruguay River comes down, and then it all merges into a river plate.
Okay.
So it's like river water. The water is not salty, so it's not ocean really. And then if you go east, like where I live in Punta Del Este, is really blue. It's ocean.
Oh, okay. Okay, so just in Montevideo, there's no real ocean
If you look
access.
up the map, it says Atlantic Ocean. But if you ever, when you come to Montevideo, you say, oh, why is the ocean so brown? And the water, it's a little bit sweet, and it's brownish. But it's not because it's dirty. It's a river.
Right.
Yeah, I see it comes up from the Atlantic, kind of up into the country, in between Uruguay and Argentina, right? And this is the river that you have to cross in order to get to Buenos Aires.
Yeah, the Uruguay River and River Plate, they become all one in the state of Colonia. Okay. And but they do have access to the ocean. Actually, the biggest port in Uruguay is Montevideo. And going back to your question of one of the biggest advantages of living in Montevideo, there's a lot to do. Theaters, operas, lots of restaurants, nightlife, and it's beautiful. As any other large city, they have their issues. Where you have in a small city, you have a lot of people, you have more issues they can make life a little bit more difficult, let's say that way. For example, if you compare Punta del Este or Maldonado, the state of Maldonado, and the city of Punta del Este, that's where I am, where I grew up, and it's the most beautiful city in Uruguay.
Punta del Este.
Punta del Este.
Punta
that's
del
my
Este.
life.
And that's how far of a drive from Montevideo along the coast?
90 minutes.
90 minutes, okay.
90 minutes.
Okay, and you say it's very beautiful there. It's considered a beautiful area, and a fair number of expats go there too, or no?
Yes, it's. I believe it's the most beautiful area in Uruguay. We have a wonderful, marvelous coast, and we also have a lot of seaside towns, smaller towns on all the coast, and the weather is nice. That we don't have any severe problems with weather. And on the other hand, there's not much to do. One of the issues we have in Punta is that it can be something great for some people and can be something negative for other people. That year-round the population is 130,000 people, and in summer we have more than 500,000. So the city is congested. It's really overcrowded in the peak season. The peak season is December and January.
Okay, so you've told us Montevideo is the big city feel. It's the cosmopolitan thing. There's pretty much anything you want. Of course, a lot of people are not. That doesn't necessarily appeal to them. Although it's a safe country, whatever security issues there are might be in the big city. Of course, you've got Punta del Este, 90 minutes along the coast, headed east. And that is a very beautiful town. You're right there on the ocean, except there isn't a lot to do. Are there any other areas where expats tend to flock to?
Some expats have chosen northern Uruguay, such as Salto. I don't know if you ever heard of Salto, where the hot springs are, where the biggest dam is, where they provide most of the power to the entire country. And they have a lot of citrus plantations, blueberries, and that's another hot spot for expats. Cost of living in northern Uruguay can be lower than southern Uruguay, and that might be a key fact for some people who are retired and want to live a very peaceful, simple life. And so I think Salto, it's also a beautiful area. It's different. They don't have access to the ocean. They have a river. They have a lot of little creeks, and there's water everywhere. And there's a lot of more farmland, and it's different.
Okay. So I had asked you before, give us an approximate range of housing expenses. Let's start off with rent. Okay. So what could a person who wanted to come to Uruguay for a month or two or something like that, what could they expect to find if they wanted to rent just a one-bedroom apartment? I
think you won't find anything less than $600 a month.
Oh.
Something reasonable, okay, something decent.
Right. Yeah, well, that's great. I was expecting it was going to be higher than that. I know Uruguay is not one of those places people talk about where, like some areas of Asia and that where you can live on practically nothing. But $600 a month is very reasonable. And I'm sure, it goes up from there and you can have luxurious apartments for much more.
Yeah, that will vary depending on where you live, how you live. And but in terms of rent, that's a reasonable price for an apartment for one couple, a small apartment in town. And then, of course, you can find whatever you're looking for, whatever you want. Fancy apartments, fancy houses, mansions, whatever you can imagine, we have it. And believe it or not, there are people who can afford that. And a lot of people from Argentina come here, Brazil, and also people from Europe, America. It's highly known for being peaceful and very quiet in some certain time of the year. And so people choose Uruguay to rest, to relax, and to get unplugged.
Okay, now let's talk about Punta del Este, where you live. What about there? Are there many rentals in that area? Can you find a rental?
Now in winter, yeah, it's most of the apartments and rentals are all available. Mm-hmm. One of the problems we have in winter, let's be honest, Punta looks like a ghost town in winter.
Oh, right.
People cannot go to the beach, cannot enjoy water sports, so it's not crowded at all. We have some tourists during winter, but not many. So rentals in winter are very low, and most of what you're looking for is available. Then in the peak season, in summer season, prices go up, cost of living goes up, and then the availability is very low.
And what can you expect as far as renting a place? The approximate range there during the summer?
Well, you can't expect to get something for less than $1,000 a month.
Okay, very good. Now, this is fine, Gonzalo. Just hit us with whatever it is. We just want to get some idea.
I mean, if you live in the seaside town, which is Punta del Este, everything is a little bit more expensive. If you go a little bit inland to Maldonado, the city of Maldonado, which is the capital of the state, everything is a little bit less expensive, and rentals, cost of life. Everything turns out to be a little bit cheaper.
Okay, very good. What about Salto up north? What's it cost of living? Quite a bit less, huh?
Yes, I would say a lot less. You can find a little home or an apartment in Salto for $400 or $500 a month. If you rent a big house, of course, that's going to cost you a couple of thousands. But also, cost of living, food, everyday's things are less expensive in Salto, and people make less money in northern Uruguay.
Okay,
that is a fact.
Sure, understood. So the reason why a lot of people consider Uruguay as a potential landing spot is, obviously all of the things that you mentioned, but also because it's a place where it is not too difficult to achieve residency or citizenship. Is that correct?
That is true. Nowadays, it's pretty easy to become a resident. Things have changed, and government is becoming more progressive about granting residencies, and the process is not so long as it used to be, and it's not so difficult. And people who become residents, let's say a married couple, and they were granted a permanent. They are permanent residents now, and they can prove they have been 3 years in Uruguay, somehow socially involved. In 3 years' time, they can apply for citizenship and become a Uruguayan citizen and have a Uruguay passport. As you know better than me, a lot of people pay fortunes to become a citizen of some countries just to have a second passport, a second citizenship. And in Uruguay, you can get it if you're married in 3 years. If you're single, in 5. And it's not expensive. It's a process that basically depends on how long you stay in the country, and if you do any kind of business activity, if you pay Social Security, and if you are employed, or if you set up a business that has a very good impact on your positive impact on your residency and then in your future citizenship. So in general, I would summarize that becoming a resident and a citizen is not something difficult.
Okay, so what does it take to get your residency? You actually help people do that, so there are charges for your services, and then there are also going to be government charges to process the forms, correct?
That is correct. It costs about $2,500 with government expenses and all the expenses and my consultancy fees, $2,500 per person to become a resident, and it takes about, let's say, 12 to 18 months.
Okay. And go ahead.
And you have to be there the entire time?
Not the entire time, okay. But you have to be here the most, as long as you can. I mean, the longer you stay, the better, or the faster you will get your residency.
Right.
But people are allowed to travel in and out. They're coming. But the longer you stay overseas, the longer it takes for you to become to get it granted.
Okay, and you need to be renting an apartment there or something, correct?
You need to establish this has to be your primary residence, and they really pay attention on how long you stay. They monitor your in and outs, and they also make sure let's say you're young, it's really important for them that you do something to contribute to the country, either getting a job or setting up a business. It's not about how much you contribute. It's about doing something. They don't want lazy people to, and you might think, oh, what does a retiree? Well, retired people are not expected to get a job or set up a business, but they will pay attention on how long they stay. Again, people are allowed to travel. They can get in and out. That's not a problem. But since, when Uruguay, I don't know if you heard, like in 2009, Uruguay was placed in a gray list for money laundering countries. I think that was a big lie from the IMF. And then Uruguay government said, we're not a banana republic. We don't grant residencies to anyone. We only grant residence to people who reside here, who live here, and who do some kind of activity in the country. So after that, they became a little bit more strict with the fact of residing in the country and doing some kind of a contribution, as I said, a business, getting a job or investing.
Right. Well, as far as the business goes, I mean, I think that it would probably be pretty normal for a person to have a business already going and then think about maybe getting a residency in Uruguay. Would they then have to reincorporate in Uruguay, or could they have, just keep it as it is?
If you have a business and let's say you can work online from Uruguay, if you declare you do that from Uruguay, you would have to get registered, and depending on what you do, it would be beneficial for you to pay some taxes here. Let's say if you do software, I mean, the taxes that you pay, for example, are very low. You don't pay don't pay VAT because software is VAT free when you export those services and those products. But if you say that you work from home, from Uruguay, and you do some services, you provide services to a foreign company, since you're working on Uruguayan soil, you are supposed to get registered and set up your business here. Okay. You're gonna say, oh well, I'm gonna be double taxed. Maybe yes. That could be a drawback. But.
Yeah, but so by registered, you mean file taxes, or you need to re-register your company in Uruguay, so you need to have two different companies? I'm trying to figure out what that means, be registered.
Be registered, I mean, to set up a business. Even if you have a business on somewhere else in the world, if you come and start working in Europe, you can do it. Nobody will knock on your door and push you to get to do it. I mean, but if you are going to declare that as your main source of income, they will say, hey, well, since you're working here, you should get set up your business here, pay taxes in Uruguay, and get in the system.
But sometimes people come to Uruguay and they find partnerships that they can enter into that don't take much of their time, and that can suffice to the Uruguayan government, correct?
That is correct. That is totally correct. Yes.
Okay. So those are the types of things that you can help people with, right, Gonzalo?
That is correct. One member of my team is an English-speaking CPA who is very knowledgeable and knows all the pros and cons of and how you should set up your business to protect your interest. Mm-hmm. So yes, that's one of the things I can help with.
Okay, so there are a number of things that are probably challenges to people who want to come there, establish residency, perhaps citizenship, that you can help navigate them through, right?
Yes, we can find ways to make things easier for people who have some difficulties in. We can find a way around. Yes.
Okay. Well, glad to know that. In a minute, we're going to come back and we're going to talk about some of the potential negative things about Uruguay and just get some of your other thoughts. But now it's time for a word from our sponsor. Today's Borderless podcast brought to you by the Condescending Group, your online leader in promoting moral superiority. As you know, our friends at the Condescending Group have been fighting ferociously for a $15 minimum wage. Picketing, giving as many interviews as possible, going on food strikes, shaking their fists, lighting themselves on fire, threatening, screaming. In fact, one Condescending Group staff member actually shrieked so long and so hard about it in protest that she explosively gave birth to a tiny clone of Lenin, right there on a moving San Francisco cable car. No joke, it even had the bald spot, the goatee, and a cute little hammer and sickle tattoo. Anyway, you got to appreciate that kind of mindless, slobbering commitment, I suppose. But things hit home this week when they found out this now meant they actually had to pay their staff assistants and interns at least $15 an hour. Said Eric Heine, Condescending Group Managing Partner, "Yeah, that's not going to be possible for us." Somehow it hadn't occurred to them that their spaced-out rage over Fight for 15 would threaten their own already unprofitable operation. So they're back to picketing, going on food strikes, shaking their fists, lighting themselves on fire, threatening and screaming again, this time to demand taxpayer subsidies or special exemptions. Go to thecondescendinggroup.com for up-to-the-minute shriek-by-shriek coverage. The Condescending Group, they care more than you. Okay, so we're back to the Borderless podcast. We were talking with Gonzalo Gomez of Puntaconsultants. He's somebody who helps you with concierge services and smooth out the way toward gaining residency and a life in Uruguay. So, Gonzalo, you told us a lot of very positive things about Uruguay. I'm not surprised a lot of people are thinking about going there. Maybe we could talk about some of the things that, from an expat perspective, might be considered negative. Why don't we just play devil's advocate here? What's negative about Uruguay, maybe?
Well, one of the things that most people complain about, and even some of us Uruguayans complain about, is the high cost of living. We said before that this depends on where you live and how you live and what you do. But in general, there are many things. In Uruguay that can be expensive for a lot of people. Let's say, for example, gas. 1 gallon of gas is $6.50. So, okay. They're talking about increasing the price of gas to $7. 1 gallon, $7. So that can be expensive. Cost of living, I would say that in Uruguay, a small family or even a couple of two people who live a simple life, you could not make it with less than $1,500 a month. That we say again, that depends on many factors. But Uruguay, let's say you want to buy a car, the prices of a vehicle, getting a vehicle in Uruguay will be double compared to the U.S. Government tax cars and electronics a lot. And when you go and buy your car, you will say, "Oh, wow, I'm paying double of the price of the U.S. and Europe." And it's not because the car dealer is a robber. It's just it's highly taxed. Cars, electronics, a lot of imports are highly taxed, and that is a problem. Some people cannot access those things, and since we're a cash-based economy, they don't give you much credit. So it's not that you can go to the bank and get a loan and buy whatever you want. When you go and buy your car, even it's always been like that. When you buy your home, you go buy cash. You pay it all at once. Mm-hmm. So people are not. You would say, well, that could be an advantage because people are not running into debt. That is true. But on the other hand, some people cannot even have a decent car. In many cities of Uruguay, around Uruguay, you might see one parent riding a motorcycle with 2 or 3 kids going their way to school. and you say, "Oh, that's crazy." How you? Yeah, but you have to think about it. I mean, they do it because they cannot afford a car, and public transportation is good. It's not that there is no public transportation. Public transportation is pretty good around the country, and it's not expensive at all. But in terms of what is highly criticized in Uruguay, if you compare it with other South American countries, is the high cost of living.
Okay, just curious. Earlier you said they're thinking about charging $7 $7 a gallon for gas. What did you mean by that? I mean, who is they? They're like controlled prices on gas.
Yes, government is in charge of controlling the price of gas.
Oh, great.
All the gas stations around the country have the same price for gas.
Okay, so it's nationalized, just like here in Mexico.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I mean there are private gas stations. I mean, but the refinery, it's government owned, and they are the ones who determine the price.
Gotcha. Okay. And how, so we're talking about government and the effect that they have on prices there. And you're talking about difficulty getting loans and things like that. I mean, I think that's something for a lot of us who head out of the U.S. at least. I mean, we already accept that the likelihood, the infrastructure as far as the economy and stuff like that, I never imagined getting a loan here in Mexico either. And it's the same thing. I mean, people can get, they can get mortgages here in Mexico, but they're paying 11, 12% and more on those mortgages, and that's usually considered prohibitively expensive. So, okay, so there's some negatives. Anything else for us on the negative front?
Well, earlier today I said Montevideo. Montevideo is a beautiful city with lots of things to do, but you also have a lot of people living there. So there are some security issues. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, Uruguay is also suffering the effects of drug trafficking. Mm-hmm. So we have a lot of people who abuse drugs, and we have some crime-related, drug-related crimes, and that some areas of Montevideo, let's say that way, are not good to visit, not to pass by.
Right. Is it true, Gonzalo? I had heard that Uruguay had either legalized or decriminalized drugs. Is that true?
Only marijuana.
Only marijuana. I see.
Only marijuana. It's legal to grow marijuana. If you go and register in the post office, you can legally have up to 6 plants at your home. 6 plants. And you can grow them, and it's legal.
Okay, so I thought we were talking about the negatives. Now we're back to the positives. But anyway, James, what were you going to say?
Well, no, I think that you're saying more. I don't know what you would classify as hard drugs or something like that. That's the people that are causing trouble and stuff like that. But I would like to know what it's only been a couple years now, right? That they've legalized marijuana. Is that right?
It's been 1 year, about a little bit more than a year.
Okay, very
they've been
short time period.
They've been talking about it for a longer time, but they really legalized it a little bit more than a year ago.
Yeah, I think probably most people, they know Uruguay from the president. I don't think he's still the president, right? He stepped down.
No, we had elections in November. We have a new president. It's actually the same president we had one term before. So that was the same president we had more than 6 years ago. Okay. I mean, the term before. We have elections every 5 years here.
Okay, but everybody knows him. I think it's Mujica. That's his name, right? I think he's very popular. A lot of people, like him throughout the world. I always see memes and stuff with him.
Very charismatic, for sure.
Right. So he a year ago he legalized marijuana. I was just curious, so from on the ground, how has that been working out? How do you see that working out?
Well, some people say that legalizing marijuana will somehow prevent lots of problems. Some people say that legalizing marijuana, so people who believe that marijuana is the key to harder, bigger drugs. I mean, you have people pro and against the legalizing marijuana, but I haven't seen any changes. What I've seen is they are monitoring. I don't do drugs, but what I've seen as an outsider, I've seen that people are getting registered. Some, obviously, people who do bad things, they do not register, and they keep doing their things under the table.
Register what? What register what?
Register is you go to the post office with your ID, and you say, I want to have my 6 plants at home for self-consumption, and that's it. They don't bother you. They know who you are.
I got to get this straight. You go to the post office in Uruguay and say, I want to register my marijuana plants?
That is true. Yeah, okay. That is correct. Yeah, they are the entity in charge of doing the registrations. Don't ask me why.
Okay.
And do you need a registration in order to consume and grow, or only to grow?
For that you have to go to the public water department. No, I'm kidding.
No, you can grow your 6 plants, but you're not allowed to sell, to grow and sell. It's just for you to have at home and to do whatever you want to do with it.
Yeah, heaven forbid you have some free exchange. So, but to consume, do you also need a license?
No. There's a funny thing with the law. Consuming is not illegal, but selling is illegal.
Right.
Okay.
So you can imagine what that leads to. But
Right.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's only been a year, so I suppose all the effects are.
Yes, I mean the truth about it, we still don't know it. It's all it's a project. They believe they can improve things with this, and they can control some of the drugs and some of the addicts. But the thing is, I've never seen a person who smokes or consumes marijuana committing a crime. Right. The other drugs are the ones which are problematic, like crack and cocaine and
alcohol.
Yeah, and even alcohol. Alcohol is a legal drug, and
yeah. All right. Well, that's interesting. I just wanted to.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we appreciate that, Gonzalo.
But let me add something. A lot of this marijuana thing, the legalizing of marijuana, led to a lot of business. Uruguay gave some license for big producers to grow marijuana, and some pharmacies will soon be able to sell marijuana, and there will be like a free market. But I think the big business for those investors who came for the marijuana business is the export. It's legal to grow it. They will somehow pack it and export it, and that's a big business.
So they're going to be allowed to do that, because I thought they weren't allowed to sell, but you're saying that the laws are going to change soon?
No, the one thing is for individuals to grow their marijuana at home, they can legally have up to 6 plants. But if you apply for a license, government gave several licenses to corporations to grow marijuana in Uruguay and export it, and they are aiming at their pharmaceutical industry. Right. They want to use the marijuana for treatments, for the medicinal area.
And do you know the countries that they're allowed to do that? Because I don't think that that's allowed to import many countries. Yeah.
To import, well, some European countries, and I think some states of the U.S. Maybe I'm wrong, guys, but I think in some states of the U.S. they are allowed to import marijuana.
Well, either way, I guess it's a step in the right direction. Anyway, it sounds like, with the idea of recognizing that enforcement of that is futile and leads to much more problems than letting it have a measure of freedom. So anyway, that's better than most places. So let's see what else we got here, James. We've talked about getting residency. We talked about
I think we forgot. We talked about residency, but we didn't go over citizenship.
Right.
So once you establish a residency, how long does it take, and what other things do you have to do in order to get a citizenship there?
Well, believe it or not, becoming a citizen is faster and maybe easier than becoming a resident. Mm-hmm. Let's say you are a permanent resident and you have resided in Uruguay for 3 years. Let's say you are married. So you have resided here for 3 years. If you have an ongoing business in Uruguay and you have been paying social security and some taxes in Uruguay, and you can prove and you have those records. Or if you were an employee and you worked in Uruguay for a while, and you can easily legally working, of course, and you can prove that, and you have some banking activity, and what else? You have with some witnesses, and you can. Those are the most important things to apply for citizenship, and you can become a citizen of Uruguay in about 6 months.
Oh.
And in 6 months, you can have your Uruguay passport.
Great. And so once you get either of those, so say like either residency or a citizenship, do you then have to have like a maintenance thing, or do you have it for life, or how does that work?
Well, the good thing about becoming a citizen is you have it for life.
Okay.
You become a citizen, and then you have it forever.
Great. What about the residency?
The residency, if you once you become permanent, you have, in order to avoid losing your permanent residency, you have to visit Uruguay at least once every 3 years.
Okay.
Okay. Well, that's not bad.
And when you become a citizen, you get a passport for 5 to 10 years. And let me say something about the Uruguay passport. Uruguay passport is a Class 1 passport. You will be able to travel to Europe without a visa. You will be able to go to most African and some countries in Asia without a visa. Obviously, South America, Central America, and they are now talking about going to the U.S. without a visa, since Uruguayans don't go to the U.S. to work or stay. They're not interested, so they want to finish with the visa thing to travel to the U.S. for Uruguayans. Okay. So I think Uruguay passport is a very good passport. With all respect, it's not a Banana Republic passport, and it's some people pay a fortune to have a second citizenship and a second passport, and in Uruguay you can have it for little. Great. It's only about being patient and doing things right.
Yeah, that's great. So does Uruguay tax income that you make outside the country?
No, they don't.
Okay, well, that's good.
No, they don't.
No. So the idea is that they don't tax foreign income made from a foreign business, but if you're going to get your residency and your citizenship, you need to be participating in some way there in Uruguay, which may include paying some taxes, correct?
Yes, that's it, Jonathan.
Okay, very good. And you help people figure that all out, don't you?
Yes, that's what I do for a living, and that's what they call. That's what government call social insertion. That's very important for them, that an expat is part of the community and the Uruguayan society.
All right.
And that's something, I've been doing for a while, and unfortunately, things have worked out well.
What do you say about the women in Uruguay, Gonzalo?
Women in Uruguay? What do you mean?
Well, I don't know. What do you mean? No, I'm kidding. I know that you're a family man, but would a typical single male, find a lot of beautiful women in Uruguay?
Well, women in Uruguay are beautiful, no doubt. If they can learn some Spanish, I think they will be successful.
Okay.
Right. A lot of people in Uruguay do speak English. Some of them do not speak very fluently, but in general they do speak some English. English is taught at school and high school, so most people have some knowledge of English, and they would be able to communicate pretty well. But if you're a single man and if you are sociable, I don't think you will find difficulties in finding a good companion.
Okay. And so you think that probably Montevideo or Punta del Este would be better for safety?
That would be Montevideo.
Montevideo, yeah. Okay.
Right.
That would be Montevideo.
Restaurants, bars, places like... What time do the bars close in Montevideo, or do they?
Oh, whenever they want. There are no restrictions about that.
And then, a quick trip. It's not too far to get to Buenos Aires, right? I'm sure a lot of people go visit there.
That's a great advantage about Uruguay.
Yeah.
If you say, okay, I'm bored in Uruguay, and you find a nice concert or something, opera, something in Buenos Aires, you go by ferry in 2 hours, and you're in Buenos Aires.
Great.
Can you bring your 6 pot plants with you on the boat?
No, you can't.
Okay, damn. We've heard a bunch of negative stuff, and now right till the end, we find out the women are beautiful. You can grow some of your own pot. You can smoke it legally, and you can go to Buenos Aires, and there's a lot of fun. And the bars stay open all night.
That's right.
Right, if they want.
Yeah, bars, the funny things about bars, they party all night long, and they end up when the sun rises. And don't ask me how they go to work. Then I don't know that answer, but but they party all night long.
Okay.
And there are no limitations on how long they have to remain closed or open.
Great.
We still have a lot of liberty and some freedom, which is good.
Good. Well, yeah, no, sounds interesting. I'd definitely like to check it out someday for sure.
Okay. Well,
yeah. Would be nice.
Yeah, Gonzalo Gomez of Punta Consultants. Thank you so much for joining us for the Borderless podcast.
You're more than welcome, guys. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, so I'm not sure how many of our listeners found that interesting. I hope it was interesting for me, just because I keep hearing Uruguay is a great place to get residency and citizenship, and now I get why.
Right. Yeah. Well, you've been investigating this type of stuff a lot lately. I know Panama is another place that people like to get residency a lot. It seems to be one of the main places that, if expats are trying to kind of set up an international type of structure, that, Uruguay seems to be like a place that you can get naturalized pretty quickly. So
now, it's like he said, some people, the citizenship, some people, you made a video not long ago. What's the least, like a little over $100,000 in some of these jurisdictions?
Yeah. It's very expensive. So you got, there are some that have economic citizenships. The thing is that you really have to pay attention to which are actually legitimate and accepted. So, for that, I look at Henley and Partners. That's the people that I respect their opinion. And they only, accept maybe 5 economic citizenships. And the cheapest one is, you have
5 a year?
No, at all. Like 5 programs, economic citizenships throughout the world.
Oh,
there are other economic citizenships, quote unquote, but they don't have a proven track record. Right. Any tin pot dictator can say, "Oh yeah, invest $1 million in my country and I'll give you a citizenship." But is that really going to stand the test of time? Is it, is it worth spending all the time and money that you need in order to get it? So Barbuda is one of them, St. Kitts, Dominica. And then, those are anywhere from, $200,000 and up. And then you can go to all the way up to $1 million in Malta. Malta is the only economic citizenship that's accepted in the EU. EU citizenship is very highly sought after because you can live and work all over in all those European countries. There's no passport checks internally and this whole Schengen area and stuff. So it can be very expensive.
So this is an option, for people who have this kind of flexibility. And, I like Gonzalo. He and I spoke privately a week or so ago. And part of this is there are official things in place. And nobody's saying that they're not official and they're not legitimate, but there are people, and he's one of them, that can help you deal with all of the little hurdles that you have. For instance, the economic activity and things like that. But realistically, if you just play this straight, still, if you're married 3 years, if you're not 5 years. You go hang out in Uruguay. Maybe you like Montevideo. Maybe it's a fun place. Maybe it's great. I hear it's very well connected internet-wise. You bust over to Buenos Aires and maybe you stay there 9 months out of the year. Maybe you find a way that it doesn't have to necessarily be 9 months a year. You go travel, do whatever else you want. Then all of a sudden, within 6 months, you've got your passport and you're good, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah, it really helps to have somebody there that knows kind of the ins and outs. So we talked to John Coben, just was it a month and a half ago, something like that. I was just looking last night and putting all the contacts I have in different countries together into a document. And I've got about 50 different people that I know in different cities across the world that do that kind of thing. So, it's really good to have that type of network. And, we have a lot of people on the Facebook page as well. People come on there and they say, hey, I'm in, Ecuador, boom, and all of a sudden within 5 minutes you got 5 people that popped up and are there. So it's definitely a good resource to have people there that can help you out.
I still want to find out who the sheik is. If you're the sheik who's on our Borderless podcast private page, or maybe it's an outfit, or maybe you're not a sheik, you just wear that. I don't even know what you call that thing.
Yeah, I think it's a fake picture.
Is it? Oh,
yeah,
maybe
yeah.
It is a fake picture. Yeah. Anyway, but anyway, it's growing, and there's people from all over the place living all over the world. But anyway, so it's great talking to him. Maybe Uruguay is right for you, maybe not. We'll find more people, and we'll try to connect you with the people and places that are right for you.
Absolutely. And if this is the first time listening to the podcast, please go to borderlesspodcast.com. And if you'd like to receive updates on all types of news that has to do with people that are living and working internationally, then you can sign up your email there. And you'll also get a form if you'd like to talk to me and for 20 minutes or so, and I can give you these types of contacts if you're thinking about going someplace, or just get on the Facebook group. I'll also give you the link to the Facebook group where you can get on there and ask people about the place that you might be going. I'm sure that there are people that, if they're not there right now, they have been there in the past, and they can shed a little light on that for you. So,
all right, giddy up. Another Borderless podcast coming up soon.
Thanks for joining us for the Borderless Podcast, traveling, investing, and living beyond borders.